Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded, where we focus on God, family, and country. We've got Scott, Shane, and Paris. We're all here tonight. Super excited to bring to you our message today, our podcast. We got a lot to talk about in terms of what's coming with the weather and El Nino and extreme weather conditions and how to prepare and how to be ready for those types of things in our podcast today. You're not going to want to miss it. Make sure you listen all the way to the end. Before we get started, though, please go to preppertalkradio.com. Check out our resources. Listen, click on all the links there we have to our socials. Join our communities. Be a part of the conversation with us. Let's all be prepared together and train together and work together to be better prepared and be ready-minded. Also, check out preppertalkradio.com/Ready Project. Ready Project is one of our new affiliates that we're working with. In fact, we're actually working on an exclusive deal just for our listeners. But if you go there right now and fill in the information there, and you'll get a link to our affiliate program with them. They've got some great food storage options. One of the things I really like about their options is that they have a 30-day supply that's got the right amount or an appropriate amount of calories per serving. So good quality stuff. And they've got great quality first aid kits for those who want those. Also, just a reminder too, because of the economy, there's been some banks actually in the last little while that have been downgraded. And when you downgrade a bank, you actually have, so that just is an indication of what's going on in the economy. So important to remember and realize that gold and silver, precious metals should be a part of your portfolio. Definitely should be a part of what you're doing. So please make sure that you're doing that. We're grateful that we're live. We're on our YouTube. We're live on our Facebook and our Facebook group. So if you want to join us, if you're listening now in a podcast, then please join us on our weekly live so that we can communicate with you and get your questions answered and have some interaction. But I also wanted to thank everybody who's been listening and sharing. Where our downloads are up again, so we're getting some good traffic. Thank you so much for listening. So let's chat a little bit about some extreme weather preps and what we can do to be prepared for what's going on. I mean, we just saw this last week a huge fire that happened in Maui, and then there's also another indication that there's going to be a huge winter again with El Nino coming in. So we've got a lot of things to talk about today.
Yeah, I think the thing I wanted to kind of start out with is what we're seeing in the media. And I don't watch the mainstream, but I see clips and highlights of things that are being said. And I just want to recognize, first of all, that they are throwing fear at us. I mean, it's all about fear, right? It's about, this is extreme and this has never happened before, yada, yada. And for the most case, that's not true, right? There are weather extremes. We need to acknowledge them. We need to be ready for them. But most of the stuff they're throwing at us is fake and lies. That should be part of our discussion.
Well, that's because it's become legal for them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The media is allowed by law to propagandize and to lie to us. Thank you to Obama,
mm-hmm.
right? The hope message. He made it legal for them to just completely lie to us if it's in line with what the government needs or wants. Now, take that into consideration as I tell you what's going on in Hawaii, right? For those of you who've been watching the news, you know that there's fires in Maui. There's a lot of different problems. I like to watch the alternative news, and we actually shared a video between the three of us of one of those sources talking about what's happening in her area. She's actually directly in the area where the fire has been. And it's interesting because the things that I'm hearing from all the different sources is the same. They're turning away real help, and the FEMA groups and the Red Cross groups are allowed to come in, but they're not providing anything. They're actually taking away resources and stopping people from actually getting help. Now, that's not an extreme weather, right, event. I believe 100% that it was fabricated. It was a forced and man-made fire. Quote me on it later if you want to, or call me out on it in the comments below. But It was 100% man-made. Whether you want to call it, you know,
Stage
energy
right,
weapons, or you want to
Mhm.
call it something else, right?
Yeah.
There's just too much suspect of what's going on.
Seriously.
Especially all their actions afterwards, right? Immediately
Mhm.
afterwards are really the icing on the cake to say, okay, this is they had other motives, they had reasons.
Well, the book's already come
to do
out
this.
talking about climate change to go
Yep.
along with it.
Yeah, like how did the book come out already? Like 2 days later,
Right.
a whole book was on
AI,
Amazon
man,
available. That
AI,
was
right?
Fire in the Sky or something. Yeah, could have been AI,
Yeah.
or
But the
you know,
city, here's the thing: like, we as preppers, we want to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves first, so that we can then help our community second. That's our mission as Prepper Talk Radio. Focus on God, family, and country. Align myself with God so that I can make sure I'm doing the right things at the right time, so that I'm ready for those things. Like, as we come into fall and winter, weather changes, things like that. Like, last year we had examples in like New York where people were stranded because of freak storms. They're stuck in their cars, and like, if you had an electric car, good luck, gone.
yeah.
Right?
And it got so cold, people died in their car.
Yeah. And so we want to make sure we're thinking about, all the contingency plans that could happen. Get those bases covered, or at least be as robust in your preparedness as possible, so you don't have to stress about it. You
Yeah,
don't have to worry about it.
from what I'm seeing for a lot of this, again, going back to the mainstream media, the overarching theme is, it is, they are pushing the climate change, right? That's their agenda. And I don't think there's any argument whether there actually is climate change compared to what we know, but it's not for the same reasons. It's not, caused by, cow farts and CO2, those are, CO2 is not a greenhouse gas. Anyway, what I'm trying to get to is what they're saying is, this is your fault. All of this weather extreme is your fault, and we're going to fix it for you. Give us the power, give us your freedoms so we can fix it for you. Right. That is the overarching theme that I'm saying is like, their solution is communism. Right. This is your fault that the weather is changing, and we're going to fix that for you because we're the heroes. And
Well, I've seen these commercial or these videos of these tire graveyards in other countries that
Middle East,
they're
yeah.
burning, and it's like, dude, my car is not going to put out anywhere near the CO2 as an hour of whatever they're burning in Saudi Arabia. And that's the thing with we're a global economy, and we're a global world. And if you want global warming, you got to talk to other countries about what they're doing, and we can do our part. But shoot, these other countries got to step up, or else, it's like, come on, start working to, that's where the, who knows what how you get other countries to be obedient to anything like
well,
that.
that's the whole thing, is everyone's going to do what they want to do based on their country's quote unquote best needs and their best scenario. What's funny is America comes in and says, "Oh, we can be the saviors of the world." American governments, we can be the saviors of the world. We will fix everyone else's problems by fixing it here first. So they end things that make sense and enact things that don't make sense, and that's where we go. Like Utah Mike's talking about how he went through 2 California fires. Wind is the enemy, right? Was the hurricane man-made? I went through a couple of hurricanes and a tropical storm when I lived in Florida, and those were pretty intense. We didn't have power outages, we didn't have anything like that, but we had issues with water for a couple of weeks. What was worse was we had a tornado, and it was the deadliest tornado in the history of the state. And that happened in my area while I was serving a mission for my church there. And what's crazy is we spent the next 2 weeks cleaning up and trying to get things back to normal. Those are the things that most people aren't prepared for. Like, the number one thing people didn't have: water and work gloves.
Wow.
And I'm like, work gloves would have been fantastic for everybody. I had them. I always had them in my bag. I always had a nice leather pair of work gloves. And what was funny is everyone that I met was getting those little cheap garden gloves because that's all that was left, the little ones that fray real fast.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to have your essential 96-hour kit, has to have good gloves, and you've got to have good work tools around the house.
Well, right now is because it's still summer, it's still hot, it's still in the 90s, right? It's still August. But even right now, you can start to see the signs that winter's coming, that fall's coming, right? And
Yeah,
now
we
is
had
the
a
time to
freak
start
lightning
making
storm the
those.
other day.
Yeah, I love summer lightning storms. They're awesome. I love them. But yeah, it's a reminder that okay, it's not always going to be like this. It's going to change, and we need to change our ways and prepare before winter gets here again, right? And that doesn't mean as much for us now in our comfortable existence as it used to. Getting the firewood stacked up and ready for winter. Because who knows with this El Nino? We were going to talk a little bit about El Nino.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the moderate to strong, whatever really that means. But where we live, it seems like anything is possible in a strong El Nino year. Last year was a La Nina year, and we had huge snow, huge water. And it's supposed to, I say we would typically get more rainfall, more snow in an El Nino year. So who knows what is going to come our way, and we need to be ready for it, right?
Yeah, I don't know if this is, I haven't really done my homework to make sure that this is accurate, but I heard somebody say that a couple years, like last year or maybe 2 years ago, there was a volcano that erupted down near one of the islands, and like New
Tonga,
Zealand or
right?
something like that, Tonga, something like that, and it put about 10% more precipitation into the atmosphere. And that was one of the big reasons why we had such a wet year last year, all throughout the country. And I'm sure several other countries were affected as well. And they said that might go potentially for 3 or 4 years. And so I'm thinking, wow, last year was the first year and it's going to just build on itself. We got El Nino coming up. We got La Nina, which is the little girl. And then El Nino is the little boy. Who knows what's going to happen this winter. I know we've already had several rainstorms and several other things this way. And regardless of how the fire in Maui was started, or regardless of what's really going on with how whatever weather modification or geoengineering is happening, point is we still need to be prepared for whatever they're doing. Well, whatever happens, like if you're, I don't know if you saw this, but there's also a house that all of a sudden just blew up out of nowhere. Like you can't really prepare for that.
I have
gas leak. Yeah.
Yeah, it just blew up and everybody died all at once. Like it was, and like 12 other houses were really affected poorly. And so you might be doing your best and you might be perfect, but your neighbor's a knucklehead. And his house blows up and half of your house is burnt down because of his problem. So
and they're building houses closer and closer together every day. Like every new build, everything I'm seeing, it's like they're pushing the limits on how much the house costs, but the houses are getting closer and closer, like 10 feet, 12 feet apart.
Yeah, I'm like, we got to be prepared and ready because, who knows what's going to happen in our neighborhood. And that's where it's all the more reason to get these podcasts and get these videos that we're doing out to your friends and say, look, be ready, be prepared. Look what happened in Maui. Look what's happening in the Northeast. Look what happened last winter. Let's be more prepared this winter, or at least get ourselves in a position where we can be ready for whatever, this winter might produce, and really get our. So for example, I went to my mechanic, had my car worked on, and I said, hey, can you look at my tires and see if the tread is thick enough for a winter here? And he says, well, if we have a winter like last winter, you're going to want to get new tires before winter. And so I was like, thank you. Now I'm going to save up for better tires. I don't want to be slipping and sliding during the winter. Yeah. So even something simple like making sure that you have your car, your vehicles prepared and ready to go with good tires, good windshield wipers, weatherizing your car. During the summer, I summerize my car. During the winter, I winterize my car just to make sure that I'm going to be safe on the road. I don't want to be slipping and sliding in the snow because I've got tires that need to be replaced. And so I'm going to get them replaced before I need it. And that's what I'm saving up for the next. I got to do both cars. Dang it. So I'm going to have a pretty big bill here in the next couple of months putting tires on.
Tires aren't getting cheaper. They're just getting more and more expensive. Like,
I think part of the same discussion is, obviously we're hoping trying to prepare for the worst, right? And part of this climate change, I'm using air quotes, and yeah, there's climate change, but part of it is that, like for example, the east coast of China just got hit with it's not a hurricane out there, it's a typhoon, and their whole east coast got flooded, which wiped out a lot of food production, right? So when that happens in another part of the world, it drains resources from our part of the world. Although we know China has been building up their supplies of rice and wheat for years, and they've got a tremendous amount. But what happens in one side of the world affects the other side of the world. And we know that because of I think extreme drought in India, they're prohibiting rice export except for the basmati kind. So rice prices are going to go up. Food prices are going to continue to go up because of weather events. And so that's where the media, the mainstream, them, whatever you want to call them, take their license. They make an excuse saying, oh, because this is happening now, we need to do this. We need to save you guys from what you're doing to yourselves, to this world, because you're destroying this world, kind of like I was getting into earlier. But they're using that license to say we need to combat this. It's a war word. It's a scary word, right? It's combat. And so again, it's kind of fear and trauma that's controlling the narrative. But it should not scare you. You shouldn't be scared. I think they're definitely overhyping it so they can push their agenda. But it should also still motivate you to becoming more prepared, because there is some truth to those things.
Right. Well, it's funny. Utah Mike just said, hoard the cheaper rice, right? I've got 400 or 500 pounds of rice.
Yeah,
right?
Everyone, it's easy enough to get that.
And it's great. It stores indefinitely, like as long
Costco.
Yeah, or head on over to the restaurant supply places. You can get it way cheaper there. We got tons of beans and rice that way. But we have wheat. I mean, all the different things the staples that you should have. Everybody should have wheat, beans, and rice, right?
Yeah.
Water, and not just dry beans. Like, get canned beans too, because you don't want to be looking for water all the time. But then also think, how do I prepare these things during that time?
And one of the best places to get those dry goods staples is find an LDS storehouse in your area. You don't have to be a member of the church. In fact, this last week I was talking to a buddy of mine. He's not a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but he's like, bro, I found the best prices over there. It's already packaged, ready to go.
Number 10 cans.
You could probably do it yourself for a little cheaper, but I'll be honest with you, you're not gonna find a better deal than what you could do at the LDS storehouse. And
totally agree. Yeah,
go pick up some wheat and some rice and some beans from those guys, and pick up some apple crisps
flour,
too, and some
they
have all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah,
and the milk and the hot chocolate, all of those things.
Their milk is fantastic as well. Yeah.
I think that's one of the big things that, if we just, in our last episode, we had, for those that listened to our last episode, we had Ben Gilmore on, who is all about electrical grids, and he had an EMP from he had his property from a lightning strike that hit the ground. And so, a lot of us are scared about EMPs from China or these other things, or maybe a coronal mass ejection from the sun. I never even thought about an EMP from a darn lightning strike. Mm-hmm. So, one of the things that I would say is just make sure that you're prepared with all the things that you need, because you never know when something. And so, if you do have something like that where you're off grid, one of the big concerns is that most people they don't have a month's worth of food. What in the world? Like, you guys who are listening to this, you probably have 3 or 4 months and maybe a couple years. But everybody needs to have at least a month's supply, for goodness sakes, of food. Mm. It's like,
we live this on-demand life, and like, oh, I want to watch a movie, stream it, right? Oh, I want to buy food, Uber Eats or DoorDash or one of those companies going to send food right over. Like, we'll just order on the app and it's here. Guys, like, how many people still cook their own food on the daily? And that's one of the bigger problems. Is that is a skill that you need to be practicing now to be able to survive then. Like Utah Mike just pointed out, he's like, the best way to go for beans and rice is a pressure cooker. And I'm like, duh. Yeah. 100% agree with the guy. That's That's why I got pressure cookers, because otherwise it takes a long time. And especially the older the bean, the harder the bean gets. And so you have to have a pressure cooker. Like, and then if you don't start doing these, bye bonzo, right? Like, we have one of our tools that we have. If you go to preppertalkradio.com, go to the resources tab, we have a calculator for your food storage. So you can actually plug in all the stuff that you have, and you can see how many calories you have, right? And it'll tell you this. You can do the by serving too, but serving is never going to really give you a better understanding. You need to look at calories, right? Because the average person needs about 2,000 to 3,000 calories a day in a survival scenario where you're working and resolving situations, right? Minimum. Like, I remember, do you guys remember when Michael Phelps was winning all the golds in his last Olympic race? He was downing, I think it was 10,000 calories a day.
Holy cow.
During the Olympics. So that's an Olympic situation. Well, think about a disaster situation. You're going to be more mobile and doing things that you're not used to doing. So stock up on like your white willow, and stock up, or if you want to stock up on ibuprofen, stock up on ibuprofen. Like, but white willow does basically the same thing, and it's natural.
Willow bark, you mean?
What?
Is
White
it
willow bark. Yeah,
Yeah.
My parents always buy the white willow version.
Nice.
But yeah, willow bark. But have that stockpiled, as well as get a bunch of Epsom salt, because you're going to want to take Epsom salt baths to detoxify and fix the inflammation in your body. But then stock up extra water and stock up lots of calories. That's why we talk about the 90-day pantry, right? Get as much as you can get ready to go now before the extreme weather hits. Like, how are you going to cook in the middle of winter when the power goes out?
Mm-hmm.
Or how are you going to stay warm in your car if you're stuck in a blizzard? You know, what's in your car right now that's prepared, that you have in your car all the time?
Yeah.
You talking to me?
I'm talking to you guys.
A couple episodes ago, we had a Survival Frog on, and he talked about that great bivy blanket that is super important to have something like that. And my particular kit, I did a video on it. I'll link it for those that are watching on YouTube. But I did a video on some of the things that I have in my car, and I carry one of the things I carry for sure for warmth is a wool blanket, because I know that even when they're wet, they are the best way to continue to keep at least some of the warmth available. So I have a wool blanket for sure, and I have a poncho and some other things. But I would definitely, after listening to what that episode with Byron, I'm definitely going to be buying one of his bivy kits to have that in my car too, because that's something that I don't want to be cold. I hate being cold, and I definitely don't want to die of being cold. That's for sure.
Well, it's nice. Like, most of us have an empty trunk, right? I've got 2 of those Survival Frog bivy bags. I've got a couple of the Mylar blankets. I've got 3 regular blankets. I've got a case of water. I've got water under the seats. I've got a couple snacks under the seats. And then I've also got some coloring books and some other stuff for the kids in the car. Like, minimum basics. Plus, we have a radio in the console. Just in the center console, you open it up and there's an extra little radio there.
Nice.
And that's just like minimum what I always carry in the car. Plus my emergency kit, which has a battery bank. It has a charging station. It has jumper cables. It also has an extra battery for the radio, and it has flares, which I can use to start fire. I also have a fire starting kit in there, and I have 2 trauma kits, first aid kits. So it's like I've got my bases covered. And then I always drive around with my get home bag, which has additional food, additional resources. Won't go into all those details, but it's like, and I rotate that out every season with what I need for the next season. So right now I can go ultra light, but in the winter, I'm going to be packing an extra coat. I'm going to pack an extra set of boots, because I might be going to church or going somewhere where I just have specific types of shoes for something, but I've got an extra pair of boots that I throw in my car during the winter, specifically waterproof, that I'm good to go no matter where I need to go. If I need to hike home, I can hike home. And all of us need to start thinking like that. Especially those of you who are like, oh, I wear flip-flops all the time. Can you wear flip-flops in the winter? Yeah. Where do you live? It may or may not make sense. What if there's a disaster? Do you have a pair of shoes, closed-toed shoes that can help keep your feet safer? Put
Yeah,
a second
not
set
just for
in the car.
myself, but for people that you come across. Maybe you come across somebody who wasn't prepared and they're stranded on the side of the road, and you need to help push the car off to the side or do something to help. I mean, if you only have flip-flops on, you're not going to get much traction helping push your car out of the intersection or something. So, I when I realized that, I started. I love my Tevas. Like, I love wearing sandals, and when I realized, you know what, I need to be a little more prepared in case something happens where I can help somebody. So now I start wearing shoes. I have my better shoes on all the time now, so that I can help if I need to jump out and go help somebody. I can have a little more traction, a little more grip, and so that's something I'd like to do, to be able to be prepared to help others.
Yeah, I wear shoes too often, so I'm going to argue with you a little bit there, Paris. Obviously, we need to toughen up our feet, because shoes won't last forever. You're not going to have, if the systems break down, we're not going to have shoes, be able to go get shoes so easily, right? So toughen up your feet. And I've realized you can do a lot more than you think you can, instead of handicapping yourself with boots, with shoes, because I am completely that way. I wear shoes. As soon as I get out of bed, shoes are on. Before I get in bed, shoes are shoes are off. So they're on all the time. So my feet are so weak and terrible that way. I regret that. I need to be bare feet more often.
Did you guys ever watch that show, Dual Survival?
Yeah.
Remember Cody
Lundin and what's the other guy?
Well, they've gone through like 3 different other guys, but he's always like, Cody Lundin's always
in socks.
I don't need shoes. My feet are so tough because my mitochondria kicks your mitochondria's butt. And I'm like,
that's funny.
He lives barefoot.
Something to be said about that. Yeah.
So because his feet are strong enough, like, he can do that. He's trained them. He's prepped them. And in the winter, guess what he's doing? He's hiking around in a wool pair of socks, or maybe 2.
But if it's 118 degrees in Phoenix, you're not wearing bare feet. I tell you that.
Oh, I burned the bottoms of my feet when I moved to Phoenix and ran outside to my car to grab something in May. Wow. Didn't realize I'd get first-degree burns on my feet just running across the concrete. But yes, I learned the hard way. Glad I had a first aid kit.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, why did he's all wear jeans and boots year round? That's me too. I'm always in pants and just ready for anything. Like Paris said, I started wearing shoes everywhere because you never know what could happen. That's kind of been my mindset, but I know I need to tweak that a little bit. Have those shoes nearby, have them in the vehicle or something, but do more grounding. We've talked about that, And
I spend a few minutes every day outside with barefoot, just in the grass, just to ground a little bit and get get connections.
What we really need to start doing is start free running, like the Greeks. Like they call it, what do they call it now? There's a French word for it.
Not parkour.
Parkour, yeah. Like parkour. Like, you guys seen The Office? Parkour, and they're just like jumping off of a box and stuff, whatever. But like, those dudes have like the strongest like fascia, which is the basically it's like a whole tendon network inside your body around your muscles, under the skin, and it's like that's what's stretchy and reboundy, and so like that helps you bound and move and be quick. Like, we got to start training like that so that we can handle anything, and go do it barefoot so we can be like, what's up? Or like, oh, Tyler White, dude, bro always wears sandals when he's not in uniform, so that he can train his feet to be tougher, and he runs in those things, right? So definitely something can be said for training your body with less equipment. But if you've got broken glass around, and you've got like an earthquake scenario or a fire scenario that you're having to kick butt out of town to get out of there, and maybe you can't drive, or you want shoes.
Yeah. Well, this discussion leads me back to kind of what I keep hearing in the media, where the water temperature is the hottest it's ever been, or it's there were 3 or 4 days that were recorded that the average temperature on the planet, the hottest it's ever been recorded. Yeah, it's been hottest it's ever been recorded the past 100 and something years that they've been keeping records, right? Not the thousands and thousands of years that men have been around, right? So it's again a little bit of fear, but they're saying oh, these temperatures are so extreme they can kill you. No, your body is so much more adaptable to the different temperatures, different climates. If we weren't told, if the media didn't tell us, oh, look, this is dangerous, we wouldn't probably know the difference, right? You wouldn't say, oh, this is the hottest it's ever been. Another tech thing I've seen is that, say there's a weather girl, showing, oh, here's the weather, and it shows the temperatures in red, right? Oh, warning. Where you go back a couple of years and they're in green, they're in blue colors,
And it's the same number.
and it's the same number. Exactly. It's the same number.
temperature.
And I think you guys have probably all seen this, but it is a mind game. And so I think going back to, kind of what we're talking about, getting our feet used to and accustomed to different, our bodies are so adaptable, and these weather extremes, they should be noted, but they definitely shouldn't be feared, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're prepared.
We just lost you, Shane.
Yeah. If you're prepared, you shall not fear.
Yeah, exactly. I got my connection here and it shuts me off. But it's not as extreme as what they're saying. And that's what main thing I wanted to get across here is it's about fear. Yes, we need to prepare, and maybe it'll prepare a little more than usual, because weather's going to be more extreme as we go. I mean, that's what the Old Testament, that's what Revelations is, telling us is natural disasters will get more extreme, but it's not because it's not our fault, right? So we need to be aware, but not scared.
I think that's important to remember, that a huge part of preparedness and being ready for whatever might come is our mental toughness. And, if you're told that you have no control, the climate is going to do whatever it's going to do to you, and there's no way you can, change it or you have any control over it, you're going to just give up before you even start, because it's like, well, no, the snow pack is too big, the rain is too much, the fire that just came, is the earthquakes are just going to kill me, like I can't survive. No, like be tough enough to say, look, okay, Mother Earth, we love you very much, and every once in a while you're going to try to kill us, and so we're going to fight back, or not necessarily fight back, but we're going to like stand our ground.
Be resilient. That's
Yeah,
what we're born to do.
Exactly.
We're born to freaking be tough. Like,
I mean, we can survive extreme weather. We can survive, 100 more feet of snow than we've had in the last 20 years in Utah. We can survive through, if you're ready and you got the chance to be mobile really quickly and a fire hits. You see a fire coming over the ridge, or maybe you don't, but neighbors, there were some people that, thankfully, when the Maui fire hit, there was people knocking doors and saying, hey, there's a fire coming, let's go. So do that. That's the kind of community you need to be in. Like, if your neighbors aren't warning you that something's coming, then maybe you need to change your neighbors. But I mean, that was really neat. You need to be mobile. You need to be able to have your grab and go bag, and say, I got to get out of town and I got to save myself. Property, things can be bought again. Things can be rebuilt. I mean, it is overwhelming and it is devastating, no doubt. And my heart goes out to all those people that are suffering in Maui right now. However, you can survive, you can overcome, and you can be prepared, at least for I mean, if I had a grab and go bag with a pair of clothes in it, and a water bottle and some other things, how much better would I be able to? I mean, it sucks. I don't want to have to survive it, but I'd rather survive it with my grab and go bag than not. Does that make sense?
100%. Like, it's all about, number one, mindset, right? Having the mindset to be able to endure tough things. Life itself is tough. And it's like, if you want to have a nice life, you have to endure hard things. Otherwise, you're not going to know what nice is. Like, that's part of life. Like, you have to endure hard things. Like, if the weather's not trying to kill you, in our current day and age, if the weather's not trying to kill you, either the economy, Bidenomics, or something else is, right? Yeah. There's always something that's trying to dampen your day.
Here's something I've noticed in kind of the trend with this extreme weather that I wanted to bring up, is it seems like places are getting flooded out that have never been flooded out, or burnt that never been burnt before, those types of things. So I think it's a good idea to have the mindset of thinking and being aware that, oh, my home, I seem to be in a low spot. There's no stream, there's no water, but it's low for some reason, right? or you're at near the mouth of a canyon and there's a large alluvial fan of soil that is at one point got washed out, and think to yourself, I wonder what happened 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago that caused all this soil to wash out or erode from the mountain, and you live on top of it now, right? So I think if it would do everyone well who lives in more of a natural area to be aware, okay, what could happen? Could there be a flood? Just a simple kind of stupid example. A couple of summers ago, a rainstorm came up against our mountain, sat there for hours. All of a sudden, the rainwater was mud coming into our house. So that put a thought into my head: could we get washed out here? Which I had never thought of that before, right? And so, ever since then, I've gotten a little more involved with, to at least to learn more about the water drainage system coming off the mountain, and what the city and the county have done to prepare for 100 or 1,000-year flood. So I think it would do everyone well to kind of think that where you live and where you go and what the risks potentially are for a 1,000-year event, which seems to happen more often now.
Yeah, it's crazy. If you would really want to get into it, you can drive yourself nuts thinking about all the different scenarios that could happen.
Yeah, right? I do.
And I've just found, for me personally, like, and some of you guys listening might relate to this, or maybe you've never thought of this, like, pick the worst one and prep for that, because that'll help cover the bases, or at least a lot of the bases, for a lot of the other scenarios. And I like to, like, in our downloads on our website, purpletalkradio.com, go to the free resources. We have guides in there, like things you should think about putting in your kits, things, calculators for food storage, a guide for planning. Like, if you live in an area where there's a lot of wildfires, make sure you have an evacuation plan and a place to go. Mm-hmm. If you're evacuating with no place to go, then you fall into the problem of, oh crap, now I got to stay at a FEMA camp. Nobody wants to stay at a FEMA camp. Yeah, put that in your head now. Like, don't ever, like, always have somewhere you're going to pre-established, and they know you're coming. Like, it's never just, oh, we're going to go camping somewhere, because if your mountain's on fire, how long is it going to be until another mountain's on fire? Mm-hmm. It doesn't take long. The winds just have to change, and that plan's gone. So I always like to think of, okay, what are the worst scenarios that could happen, and plan for those. Like, I plan primarily for an earthquake, and I plan primarily for an EMP. Those are my two main things that I have prepped for. And then I have all these little kind of branch offs that I'm like, okay, well, if this happens, then okay, then we're going to do this. But we've got it all written down, and we've gotten that in our binder so that we don't have to stress about it. It's like, okay. And then we go over that every year, a couple times a year, to make sure that we understand what the plan is, my wife and I, so that, she's with me and not against me, and I'm with her and not against her. So we have a correlated plan. Like, okay, if this happens, here's what we need to do. And here's who we need to communicate with when that happens, so they know we're coming. Or what if we can't communicate with them? What are the other options? And so
the good news is that so much of it overlaps.
Yeah, much of it overlaps. But if you don't have plans, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. Yeah. And Utah Mike just says, the last rainstorm was the second time in 20 years that there was near flooding in my neighborhood. Some people will never clean their gutter drains. Like, yeah, the number one thing that people aren't aware of is the number one thing that's going to be a problem for them. Like, if you're not clearing out your gutters, guess what? Water's going to flow over those. It's going to get right down into if you've got a basement, right down into your basement pretty easily. We just had massive flooding here, the last major storm we had, and it went right around the house, thankfully. Like, we had everything cleaned out. We were fine. So it was no big deal, but we had, what was it? Edge Homes built some homes up here, and they lost the street and had to shut down access to some homes and shut down some homes, and some homes went away. And I can't even remember how many years ago, but there was 2 homes in Eagle Ridge down in North Salt Lake, just north of Salt Lake City. There's another city called North Salt Lake, and homes slid off the side of the hill. Yeah. Down and just gone. Different builder. So it's like, you've got to be
Well, it wasn't just
Prepared.
2 weeks ago or something like that. There was a huge rainstorm up by where you are. Is that what you're talking about, Scott?
Yeah,
Where
that's
there
one
was
of
all
them.
the flooding, and there was people like their basements were getting flooded, and
Oh
because
yeah.
it's just all of a sudden out of nowhere. I'm just grateful that I'm not in a place where that happened to me, but who's to stop it from happening at some point?
Yeah, just in the last couple of weeks, last couple of months, there were some torrential downpours over in Eagle Mountain that filled basements. And you just never know. It came off the hillside, and wasn't expected by anybody. So that's kind of what my commentary was. Just look around for what potentially could happen, and be aware, and try and get prepared for it. Like, in Florida, seems like it happens every year. Whenever a hurricane comes through, there's run on generators or gasoline and plywood. Why not have all that stuff already? That's going to happen. You should already have it stored away so that you don't have to run to the store. I mean, it's
What's
common
funny
sense
is
to me.
living down there, how many people would get rid of the wood after the hurricane season?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're just gonna have to buy more next year. Like, yeah, but I don't want to store this.
Yeah.
I'm like, you got 10 sheets of plywood, you can stack them up against the wall in the garage and rope it off and it's out of the way. Or like you've got a shed in the backyard. It's like they'd rather store Christmas decorations than and Halloween decorations and other stuff than the things that make the most sense, the things that will save their lives or save their property in an event.
Yeah.
One of the things that people don't talk about a lot is and one of our Facebook users posted this, is job loss.
That's Sydney, actually.
Oh, Sydney, Prep Center. Go
Center.
follow her on TikTok and YouTube, guys. She has some fantastic content, especially about canning and food preservation. Oh, holy cow, is she good. Job loss is like the biggest thing. Like for me, like I it's not necessarily job loss, but income loss, right? Lost jobs or failed contracts, and people didn't pay. Like a few years ago, I was working with a company that didn't pay the contract that they were supposed to pay to keep me employed, and I lost 30 grand overnight. It was gone. And guess what? We were fine because we had a 90-day supply of savings. We had a 3-year supply of food, and we just rotate through our food anyways. And so I could go and find something else. I was driving Lyft and Uber just to make ends meet so that we didn't have to freak out. And we took everything we had and we made it stretch until we had another situation, better job and making more money. And then we rinse and repeat, like lose a job or something else happens. One of the other big things that I tell people to prep for is a loss of a loved one or a life-changing injury. Like if a disability happens, that's huge. That's going to disrupt your lives in a lot of ways. And a lot of people don't prep for that.
I think something else that's really important about, and I know your situation more intimately than our listeners do, Scott, but one of the things that surprises me about your situation when you shared, what happened and how you do that, it's like, to me, I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude to God because he magnified what little preparation that we can do as mere mortals. We're down here just, I was talking to somebody today. I said, when we make plans, God laughs, the whole thing, right? So I just was so impressed with how little you did your part. You did your part to make sure you were ready, prepared. You had food, you had savings, you had the things in your control. You did your best with what you were able to do. And then God magnified it. And you guys made it through. And I was like, man, how's Scott ever going to make it through this? And then you tell me, hey, we made it through. I'm like, bro, amen. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. Because that's how it worked. I mean, how many times does God take our little effort and magnify it to the point where we make it? And we're like, how did I make it? That was a miracle.
Growing up, my dad always taught that God is the best investor in the universe because he does the least amount he needs to for you to get the most. And it's amazing because it's like, yeah, it's true. And he can take everything we have and double and triple and quadruple it as needed on a moment's notice. People would show up with stuff that we might need and they're like, hey, we got a deal on this. Do you guys need it? And we're like, yeah, like we needed diapers. And we're like, oh, well, we've got a bunch, but kids kept growing. And somebody else is like, oh, hey, by the way, our kids just got out of diapers. Do you guys need anything? We're like, oh yeah, perfect. And so we took the pull-ups and the diapers and we do the same for other people. It's like, hey, our kids grew out of these, and we had a brother-in-law and sister-in-law that have a smaller kid, and they're like, hey, we're in college, we don't have any money, but there was a run on diapers and toilet paper in Utah during the pandemic. And they're like, what are we going to do? And we're like, hey, we got smaller sizes that'll probably fit your kid. We just saved them in case someone else needs them. And now we can serve someone else, and God will use us to help someone else. And in a disaster, major scenario, like that's how it's going to work. That's how we need to make it work. What I have extra of, I can help somebody else with. What you have extra of, and especially more than anything, is not the stuff, is the skills and the knowledge and the ability. Oh, so-and-so's window got smashed out because of a tree falling. Let's go clear the tree, and we'll prep the tree for winter so that they can use that for lighting fires and keeping warm and cooking and everything else. But let's board up the window. Do you have a hammer? Do you have nails? Do you have how to use a screw gun? Like most people don't have like a good DeWalt or Milwaukee or maybe just a Ryobi screw gun set. But if the power goes out, what are you going to do? I've got boxes and boxes of nails, and I've got hammers everywhere. Like I don't use the nails very often, but I've got them for when we need them.
Well, like what you said, Parrish, it's all of these things can be for our good, right? If we'd let them, right? For our experience and for our good.
We have to do our part.
Yeah. And keep a positive mindset, and don't give up. That's kind of the simplest way to put it. Don't give up, because it will all work out for our good if we want it to.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. So I know we talked about this, which has been mentioned early in the chat earlier, about fear, and fear sells. And fear is literally the opposite of faith. And faith is what we need to be able to survive. That's the only way we'll be able to survive any extreme weather or any extreme circumstance that's in our life that happens to us. And we have to remember that, whether it's job loss or, so in my situation, and it's not as extreme as some of even what Sydney's already shared in the chat about her situation. But I mean, I had my car went out over the weekend. My stove, my oven stopped working. My dishwasher stopped working. And I'm like, what's happening? Like all of a sudden these things are happening. And I'm like, you know what? Thankfully, I have a home warranty. I have already things done. And I didn't know a repair person, but I remembered I had a warranty. So I called the warranty company and said, hey, do you cover these things? And they're like, sure do. We'll send somebody right out. And I'm like, thank goodness I was prepared. I'm not as handy as I need to be. I don't know how to fix a lot of these things, but to compensate for that, I bought a home warranty. I bought insurance. I have savings. I have money. You can compensate for skill sets that you're lacking in by having other things that you can offer to somebody else who has those skill sets. And right now we're doing that with money. We have the ability to hire somebody to come out and do things. In the future, you may be bartering, and it may be something else, some other way of currency or other way to, get things. So just be ready, be prepared, and be willing to recognize that, hey, there's other ways to be prepared. And I think having insurance and having warranties and home warranties and things of that nature is another way to be ready and be prepared, unless you're mechanical and you can fix things on your own. And if you are, teach me. Amen to you. That's a fantastic skill set to keep
start learning.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I need to start learning. You're right.
So you need to go help Scott this weekend, right?
There you go. I'll teach you how to do tile.
Nice.
Well, that's the thing. Like I know how to do a ton of different weird things for home renovations. I can do basic electric. I can do all your sheetrock. I can do framing. I can install windows. I can take out windows. I can do demolition like crazy, right? Duct tape. Red Green tells us duct tape is one of the most important things we need to have in life. If you ever watch the Red Green show, everything has to do with duct tape. Duct tape can solve a lot of problems. However, it cannot build a bridge that will sustain you.
Well, you just not using enough duct tape.
Duct tape is fantastic. I've got lots of it.
If you're MacGyver, you can build a bridge. MacGyver could build a bridge with duct tape.
No, if duct tape doesn't work, you're not using enough duct tape.
So, but what I wanted to get to is like all the skills that I have, I developed through my lifetime, learned a lot of it from my dad that gave me a foundation of it. And then I expanded on that and started flipping homes, did a few of those, learned a ton of things, expensive lessons when you're trying to flip something for a profit, but expensive lessons. But I learned more when I was put on the line. And it's like the last 5 years, 6 years, I've learned how to budget differently. I've learned how to garden in a greenhouse. Because why? I want to know those things. I start putting myself in a situation where I have to figure out how to build it, how to grow it, how to do things different. Shane, you're building your entire home away from home survival retirement scenario. And that's not easy, but you have to figure things out as you go, and you're studying and learning. And Paris, you just got your first solar charging and battery bank system and everything else. And now you're learning how to do everything with that. That's what this is all about. This journey of the prepared mind, learning, adapting, changing, switching, and all in all, every part of it, relying on God.
Yep.
I was going to buy stuff years ago. I was going to buy this power bank system, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I prayed about it, and it was just, God's like, no, not yet. I'm like, oh, okay. We didn't buy it. Well, guess what? We ended up using that money to survive when we didn't get paid from that other guy.
Yeah. Wow.
And it was like, oh yeah, that battery bank wouldn't help me at all for the next. I haven't needed it for the last 5 years. I've got a generator that runs on propane, and I got propane tanks galore. So I'm like, it's not a major issue yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I know when it's time for me to get solar, the Lord's going to provide. He's going to provide a way for me to go get it, and additional refund or resources to go make things work. And it's like, just knowing that He's always going to have my back gives me peace as I plan and prepare for the most scenarios I can plan and prepare for.
Yep. Amen to that. Well, we're about the hour. And so any last minute thoughts, Shane or Scott?
No, I think I'm all talked out.
I think this was a fun episode. I think we could go on and on and on, but the reality is weather's changing all the time, especially if you live in the north. It could be sunny one day, it could be snowing the next day. We live in Utah, so it's if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes, but it's not that extreme.
Mm-hmm.
But be prepared for whatever could happen. And then whatever happens won't be so bad. And that's it.
Yeah. And, I've been doing this for years, and I finally feel like I have my foundation ready to go. The last foundational thing that I feel like I need in my preps right now, and who knows, maybe next week I'll get a revelation, or Shane will show me something he has, and I'll be like, dang it, I thought I was almost ready. Mm-hmm. So it's just comms. I need some radios. I need to learn how to do ham radio or something else like that. So comms is a big thing for me. And from here forward, I feel like I'll just be building upon the foundation that I already have. And then of course, gaining more skill sets, getting better at the skills that I want to be able to have, the gardening skills, the mechanical skills, the other skills, and that's first aid skills, other things like that. And so we're going to be reaching out shortly to a few experts on some of these areas to have them on the show, and or to help us maybe do some classes for you guys who are listening and want to be able to increase your skills in some of these areas as well. So thank you so much for listening. Thanks for being a part of the show. Thanks for being on. Thank you, Whited, who's been on. Utah Mike's been on. We got a new new somebody that I haven't seen anybody. Crocs and Glock on our YouTube, jumped on our YouTube live. So thanks for making a few comments there. Thanks, Sydney, for being on and sharing your story with us, sharing what's going on with you. We'll be praying for you and your family to be able to get through what you're going through, your trials right now. So you've been listening to Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded, where we focus on God, family, and country. And stay prepared, stay ready. Thanks so much, guys, for listening. Take care.
See you next week.